What's up, everyone? Welcome back to another episode of the JT Sports Podcast. We got a special guest, a longtime friend of the channel, Quincy Bell Sports. Quincy, what's going on, man?
Nothing much, man. I appreciate you having me on. It's definitely been a minute. It's been a while. I think last time we weren't even in college yet. You're now, of course, at FAU. I'm at Indiana, so it's been a while. I'm excited to be back on. I'm glad you had me today.
Glad to have you on, man. So let's talk about some potential Sweet 16 upsets, man. You have fantastic basketball coverage. Definitely hope you end up becoming a bracketologist, man, because I was watching your breakdowns all college basketball season. I try to keep up with it all year. I told myself, I want to watch basketball all the way through, at least when it comes to college, but it conflicts with like so many other sports and things like that.
Yeah.
When you look at
Well, I know your squad's doing real. FAU's still in the tournament.
Yeah,
They're doing
man.
real well.
Yeah, man. And speaking of FAU, what are some potential upsets that you see happening in the Sweet 16? Could FAU upset Tennessee? A lot of people are rooting for Tennessee to win.
Well, FAU is a really strong team. They've only lost 3 games all year, and one of them was really early in the season to Ole Miss when they had some players out. And I'm trying to find the other ones, but when they're fully healthy, which they are right now, they're an incredibly hard team to beat. They have a lot. They got a lot of length. They're super athletic. Tennessee's defense, I feel like, will give them problems because Tennessee does have one of the best defenses in college basketball. I don't know what they're ranked in efficiency, but I know they're in the top 5. The thing is, though, is if it's a close defensive style of game, it's not going to be a blowout, and FAU will be able to hang around. This game is I think it's in New York, so no real, home advantage. I think FAU can win. I feel like people have been counting them out because in their first round matchup against Memphis, everybody picked Memphis because they're like, oh, well, Memphis just beat Houston, and Houston's the best team in the country. And then FAU came out and beat them on a buzzer beater, and then they kind of got lucky facing a 16 seed in the second round. But I feel like they could have beaten Purdue anyway, even if Purdue did end up beating Fairleigh Dickinson. Tennessee's only favored by 5. I feel like they can't. I feel like if I had to pick a team to win, I would pick Tennessee. But I do think FAU can win, and I think they will hang around. The biggest, upset that I think could happen is Michigan State over Kansas State, because Michigan State always ends up playing their best basketball come March. I don't know why I didn't pick them over Marquette. I had Marquette in my national title. But they are 4 seeds lower than Kansas State, but they're a 1.5-point favorite for Thursday. So I think that would be the most likely, upset to happen. The other games on Thursday are UConn, Arkansas. I expect UConn to win that one. I don't think anyone on Arkansas can guard Adamas Sanogo. I just think that UConn is just too big. And then Gonzaga, UCLA will be a great game. I picked UCLA to win the national title. This is a great defensive team in UCLA against a really good offensive team in Gonzaga. But I think defense wins championships. I think UCLA will shut it down.
What about Princeton, man? Everybody's favorite Cinderella. They're going against Creighton.
They looked really good. I'll say that. Their first game against Arizona. So Arizona played Indiana earlier in the year. And Arizona was pulling some of the dirtiest stuff I had ever seen. They were swinging elbows and stuff, and they weren't getting called for a single foul, right? So I looked at this game, and I'm like, there's no way Princeton's bigs are going to be able to just do that. And when they played Arizona, Arizona's big men were acting like some bitches, man. They weren't doing anything. They were just letting Princeton go up easy. They totally underestimated them. And then in the second game, after Princeton beat Arizona, they blew out Missouri. I did not expect them to win by that much. So this is a team, they move the ball very well. Most Ivy League teams are very fundamental. I don't know, because I feel like Creighton's gonna win this one. Creighton's a 9.5-point favorite. Like last year when St. Peter's made it to the Elite Eight, they could basically give it to any of their players and they could score in one-on-one. I don't really see that from Princeton. I feel like Creighton's – and also I think Creighton plays really well as a team. I have them in my Final Four. They pass the ball really efficiently. I don't think they're going to make a lot of silly mistakes that Arizona and Missouri did. So I don't think Princeton's going to win that one. Other Friday games, I think Alabama beats San Diego State pretty easily. I don't think Alabama's as great as people say, but San Diego State should be a win. Miami and Houston, I don't know. Are you still kind of a Miami fan?
Man, I'm a diehard Canes fan. Even though I kind of keep my mouth closed now when football season rolls around. But at least I can say, at least we got basketball season.
Now y'all whooped us in men's and women's. The women's team beat IU too, and the women's team was a 1 seed.
I expect nothing less, man, because we got like a alumni named Tom Ruiz, I believe that's his name, or Tony Ruiz. I can't remember it off the top of my head, but he be dropping a lot of bags, and he spent
someone gave Nigel Pack like $1 million straight up NIL money.
Yeah, like we pretty much bought our team, in my opinion. So I was expecting nothing less for us to be in this spot. Even before the season started, somebody asked me, how you feel about Hurricanes football? I was like, man, I'm just ready for basketball season. He said, oh, yeah, you serious? Miami's a basketball school? I said, hell yeah, we're a basketball school. And we played FAU. Oh, it was, I don't know if it was this season or last season. I went to one of the games, and it came down to Miami getting a last-minute buzzer beater to pretty much win the game. It was really crazy. But I'm really high on Miami this year. I wouldn't be surprised if we make it to the Final Four.
Well, I of course watched the whole game against Indiana, and I was furious that whole game. I mean, I was just getting upset because the thing about Miami, I think Miami's a great team. I knew that wasn't going to be an easy game. They're ranked in the top 10 in offense, but they're ranked like 112 in defensive efficiency. And I'm like, okay, IU's not like the great. I'm like, IU's more well-rounded. I think they should win. And Miami's guards were having a field day. They were making shots from anywhere on the court, and IU just made some silly mistakes. And then they got back into the game. They came back and tied it, and then they just went back to doing the same thing, turning the ball over. You should score more than 70 points on the 112th best defense. I think that might be a problem when it comes to Houston because Houston is really good defensively. Like they especially their big man. I watched them play Auburn, their big man had to have had like at least 15 blocks. They were going up aggressive on every single time. I mean, the whole point to beat Miami, you can't let them speed the game up, and that's what they did against Indiana. They sped the game up, and I don't think you're going to speed up Houston too easily. I think Houston will win. Houston's favored by 7. The +7 for Miami would be intriguing if I was a betting man, but I definitely think Houston will win. I think Miami has a really good chance, though. I think they definitely could win this game, but I just think Houston's defense will come out and play really strong. And the last game, go say what you're going to say.
So if you guys haven't already, make sure that you guys check out my guy Quincy Bell Sports YouTube channel. You guys can follow him at Quincy Bell Sports. I'll leave the link to his YouTube channel down in the pinned comment section down below and the description. So what's the final game that you wanted to tell us about before we move on? Potential Sweet 16 upsets.
All right, last game overall is Texas and Xavier. I think this is a slam dunk. I think Texas wins this one easily. I don't think Xavier's that great. IU played them early in the year, and they beat them on the road. They had to come back from down a ton against Kennesaw State and win. I picked Kennesaw State. I was pissed because I really thought they were going to win. And then they beat Pitt, but Pitt was pretty gassed. They had to play in the play-in game, and they almost blew a huge lead. Texas is looking like one of the best teams in the tournament. I think I would definitely take Texas. So in terms of upsets, I would say Michigan's – I mean, they're not even – I mean, Michigan State's favored, so I guess it wouldn't really be that much of an upset. But they are the lower seed, so I guess you can consider that one. And other than that, the most likely one would probably be FAU. FAU's got a real strong team. I would not be surprised at all if they won.
Let's talk about the Chicago Bears, man. Okay. You guys finally got my guy Justin Timothy Fields, some legitimate help at receiver now. And I really hate how the national media really has talked about Justin Fields, making it seem like he's just a super athletic quarterback that can't do anything but run the football. And it really irritates me, man, because I watched a lot of Justin Fields because this dude carried my fantasy football team on his back when I desperately needed some QB help. I was like, man, I'm just drive Justin Fields just because, I think he might do something. And it was a little rough early on during the season. But then when he really got going, I mean, this dude really got going again. People make it seem like this dude was throwing to some all-stars. Like I was listening to one person talking about Darnell Mooney and Cole Kmet. Darnell Mooney was injured for the majority of the season. Yeah. And Cole Kmet, like, I don't even think
Kmet's okay, but he's not great.
Yeah. And then you have this man throwing to somebody whose last name is almost similar to Pringles. Equinemius St. Brown. I mean, come on, bro. Can we
Amir Smith Marset. Oh my God. Yeah.
And then
I'm really happy.
Velus Jones.
Wait, you said Velus Jones?
Yeah, it's like, where was he?
So Velus Jones, like, he muffed a punt against the Vikings. We were down by 8. And they were punting it with like 2 minutes left, and he muffed it, and he fumbled it away, and then they just didn't play him for a while after that.
So it's like you finally got DJ Moore, a proven wide receiver, one of the most underrated receivers in the game. How will the Chicago Bears offense look with the addition of DJ Moore?
I mean, I consider DJ Moore to be like a better Darnell Mooney. He's got they're the same kind of like player type. They're not going to like leap over you and make a catch, but they're both real quick and they run routes really well. I think they're going to be great with DJ Moore. I think he's going to fit in perfectly. He's a proven wide receiver one. He's only like 24, 25 years old. So he'll be there for a while. I'm definitely happy that they got him. His speed is something that I'm really looking forward to. He can just burn past corners. And I hate it when people say Justin Fields can't throw because it's just so annoying. Like I remember watching the game he played against Clemson in college when he threw it from he threw it like at least 65 yards in the air right in Chris Olave's hands. Like, oh, but he can't throw. Like it's ridiculous. So I'm loving the addition of DJ Moore, and we got another first because they just traded down 8 spots. Another first next year, and then 2 more seconds. I was loving that trade.
And I'm a big fan of DJ Moore. Again, in my opinion, probably the most underrated wideout in the game right now. The dude prior to last season had 3 consecutive years of over 1,000 yards, and you really can't say that he played with any great quarterbacks. Justin Fields may be the best quarterback that DJ Moore has played with in probably his whole career. I mean, he's had Baker Mayfield, PJ Walker, Sam Darnold. I think he may have had
Walker's also on the Bears now.
Oh yeah, it's crazy. It's just a Carolina family reunion down there in the Windy City, and it's just like with DJ Moore going to the Chicago Bears, man. I really think Justin Fields could end up taking that next leap into that MVP conversation, like what we saw out of Jalen Hurts, because now you got DJ Moore, you're going to have Darnell Mooney, but then you're going to have Chase Claypool or the possibility of a Velus Jones stepping up now. And for whoever's going to be that wide receiver 3, who do you think it ends up becoming, Chase or Velus?
I mean, I think Velus has more potential. I feel he definitely in the long run, I feel like could be the better player. I didn't like the Chase Claypool trade, like trading a second round for him. I did not like that at all, especially since that's going to be the 33rd pick. So it's basically another first. It's just one pick. People get caught up in first, second, third round. You're talking about like 10 spots. So I really didn't like that trade. I mean, I know Chase Claypool has potential. And I feel like when it comes to who they'll put there, it'll be him. But I would rather see Velus Jones. But, I mean, you can't just trade a second-round pick for a guy and then not use him. So I think they will put Claypool there. But, I mean, I think either one will work.
And with me being a Steeler fan, I'm a big fan of that trade because with the Dolphins having their first round pick forfeited, we pretty much got another first round pick.
Yeah, I did not like that trade at all.
Let's talk about Joe Milton, man. I feel like a lot of people are really sleeping on Joe Milton going into this year, man. Like, people think my guy Nico might come in and start over him, and there's a good chance that could happen. But when Hendon Hooker went down at the end of the year, I mean, Joe Milton, it kind of took him a while to get going. You know, he didn't really have a great game against South Carolina when he went in. They blew out Vanderbilt, but it wasn't really that impressive. But against Clemson, I mean, you talk about having a coming out party. 3 touchdowns, completed 67% of his passes for 251 yards. How do you feel about Joe Milton going into this upcoming spring camp and this college football season?
So I follow Tennessee football very closely because my grandpa played football at Tennessee. So they're my, I guess, second favorite college football team besides IU, but we're horrible at football. So the Joe Milton story was he was Michigan's quarterback during the COVID year, and he was horrible. I remember watching him play going, this guy is bad. I mean, he could not make it. He got benched, transferred to Tennessee, became the backup to Hendon Hooker, who, of course, should have been invited for the Heisman. It probably would have won if he didn't get hurt. I was really pissed because you and me were the only 2 people that said he would win the Heisman, and then he got hurt, and I was pissed. So that happened. But he looked really good in those last 2 games. I mean, blew out Vandy, which a Vandy team that wasn't that bad. They beat Florida. It wasn't just like a 1-win Vandy team. They almost made a bowl game. And then the bowl game against Clemson really looked good. Now, of course, you got 5-star Nico Alama-Leva coming in, and he's a really good.
How to pronounce his name?
I think I said it right. It's similar to I don't know. He's a really good player though. He's the second-rated QB behind Arch Manning. Some people say he's better than him. I think he's going to really have to prove himself in camp though, because Joe Milton, I think, will be the starter. I mean, he has a cannon of an arm. That man can sling that thing. And that fits right into what Tennessee wants to do. If you give their receivers enough time to get downfield, they will be open. You just got to have a guy to get it there. So I think this will be better for Tennessee in the long term because you could give Nico a year to kind of sit behind him. So I think Joe Milton 100% should be the starter. And if he's not playing well, if he's not up to it, then you can just put him in. But I think Joe Milton will be just fine. And I don't know. Tennessee could maybe win the East. They got to get past Georgia, who's the juggernaut that is taking over college football. But that game will be at home. It'll be at Neyland Stadium. And I think they could win it. I mean, I haven't really looked too far into their schedule. I know they have to play Alabama again at Bama, but I don't know how great Bama is going to be this year with Jalen Milroe as their quarterback, now that Bryce Young's gone, who is basically the opposite of Joe Milton. He's basically a running back. I mean, that guy can run really well. I don't know. I think Tennessee's going to be really good this year.
When you look at Joe Milton, he's 6'5", 245 pounds, has a Hauser for an arm. And if he ends up panning out, without a doubt, this dude probably is going to be a first-round pick. And every single season, at least for the last couple of years, there always seems to be a guy going in who has a lot of upside. The athletic potential is there. And then you have the fact that they may be a little bit unpolished. They may be a little raw. Last year, we had Anthony Richardson, Will Levis, who got a lot of first-round hype prior to the season. After, they're still getting a lot of first-round hype. Year before that, yeah, Sam Howell, Spencer Rattler. And I'm just a little bit surprised that not more people are gassing up Joe Milton because he's one of those kind of players with the size, the arm strength. He does have a good bit of athleticism, even though it's not Cam Newton-like athletic ability. It's like this dude, if he ends up popping off, he could end up being better than what Hendon Hooker was last year. And that's really high praise because Hendon Hooker, for over the last 2 years, has been the most efficient quarterback in college football. He has a touchdown interception ratio of 58-5 over the last 2 seasons. That's better than Bryce Young.
Yeah, I don't know if he'll be as good as Hendon Hooker because Hendon Hooker had that running ability, which I mean Joe Milton can kind of run, but Hendon Hooker was pulling some escape artist stuff. So I think Hendon Hooker fits better into the college mold, but I think the reason people aren't hyping up Joe Milton is because he was just so bad earlier in his career. It's like, oh, you had a few good games, whoop-de-doo, show me more, and I think he will. Because he's for sure going to get that starting job, I feel like. I know Nico's a great player, but I think Joe Milton's going to be that starter. And he definitely could. He's sort of like he's kind of like a Josh Allen type, like a college Josh Allen type. When Josh Allen was at Wyoming and he could just throw the ball a mile, but he was like a little bit unpolished and stuff. That's kind of the type of player that Joe Milton is. So I think we could see some NFL buzz from him.
When you look at the free agent signings that the Chicago Bears have made during this offseason, which one is your favorite? You, of course, signed Robert Tonyan, DeMarcus Walker, excuse me. You got Tremaine Edmunds. Like, what are some free agent signings that you really love being the Bears fan?
I like Tremaine Edmunds. I mean, he's a solid player. I mean, he's proved himself. I mean, he's great. The Bears are definitely going to need to beef up the defensive side of the ball. Hold on. They're definitely going to need to beef up the defensive side of the ball, which I don't think will be hard. I mean, the Bears are normally a defense first team, but like down the stretch last year when they were, of course, losing all those games, they were having to rely on their offense. And their offense was actually producing. It was like the defense. You would look at games like I don't know if I've seen a single game for the Bears where it's like, okay, the defense sold the game, but the offense played well. It's always the defense played well, but the offense. But the flip side was happening. So I feel like if they can make enough defensive moves, they will be fine. And Tremaine Edmunds, I mean, he's going to be great. I'm really excited for him. I mean, I haven't really looked that much into who else we got. I mean, I know there's still some people out there. I'm trying to remember off the top of my head.
So I can help you out. So you have DeMarcus Walker, edge rusher that you signed to a 3-year deal.
He's good. Yeah. I remember. TJ Edwards is good. Nate Davis for the offensive line, I feel like will be nice. DeMarcus Walker should be pretty good. I think PJ Walker could be a solid backup QB. God forbid anything happens to Justin Fields. I mean, PJ Walker's solid.
How do you feel about the additions of Dante Foreman and Travis Homer? Do you think any of those guys are going to be in contention for, a legitimate workload? Because last year you guys did rotate in between David Montgomery and Khalil Herbert, and right now it looks like Khalil Herbert probably would be the RB1. Does Dante Foreman or Homer get more carries? Or
I think he could get some carries. I think he definitely could. He's a downhill runner. He's like a Walmart Derrick Henry. I mean, he's a strong physical guy. I feel like it would be irresponsible to just give Khalil Herbert every carry because he's real fast and like can move real well, but he's not the biggest guy. I feel like definitely putting Dante Foreman in there could be really good. I definitely think that could be a good change of pace. I don't really know enough about Travis Homer. I've really never even heard of him before, so I can't really tell you much there. But I think Foreman could get some carries. I liked what I saw of him in Tennessee.
What about Robert Tonyan? Because everybody's so big on Cole Command, especially the fantasy football community. It's like, do they end up splitting reps at tight end, or is one guy going to end up being the backup, or are we going to see more of both of those guys on the field?
I mean, Robert Tonyan is pretty good. I don't know how many like 2 tight end packages will run. I know Cole Kmet's definitely the better blocking tight end. I will say that, but the blocking tight end is, I think, being phased out of football. I mean, tight ends still have to block, but I feel like you're seeing less and less of he's a big body there at tight end. Tonyan, I mean, he was pretty good in Green Bay. And if they want to roll out a double set with 2 tight ends, they could. I mean, I'm sure he'll get some playing time. But Cole Kmet, I feel like will definitely be the definitely will be the main tight end. But I'm sure Tanya will get some catches here and there and get some playing time.
If you guys haven't already, make sure that you subscribe to my guy Quincy Bell Sports on YouTube. Quincy, let the people know where they can find you at, your social media platform, shameless plug.
Okay, so my YouTube is just Quincy Bell Sports. My Instagram is Quincy_Bell_sports. I do run a podcast with my buddy here at IU called Bloomington Buddies. We're on Spotify. If you just look up IUS TV podcasts and it'll be up there. We might have to have you on sometime, so we can definitely arrange that. But go follow that if you're more into podcasts. It's Bloomington Buddies on Spotify or just on IUS TV podcasts. Yeah, that's all I really have to plug.
And we will have the links to all the Quincy Bell Sports social media platforms, podcasts listed in the description in the comment section down below. The last thing I want to ask you about is, who should the Chicago Bears draft with the now 9th overall selection?
So there's a lot of different ways they can go here. I'm liking the idea of offensive line. There's a guy out of Northwestern that I can't remember his name. Yeah, him. I think that could be a pretty good pick. There is another guy. I don't know if we're going to get him, but I like the possibility of him. I like Nolan Smith, linebacker from Georgia. He's really good. I mean, I'm not a big combine guy. I don't look, he had a good combine, so you got to draft him real high. But this guy was showing out. He was putting up some impressive numbers. Paris Johnson from Ohio State, that could be another good guy, offensive tackle. I'd say definitely either get a stud on the defensive end or an offensive lineman. I'd be fine with an offensive lineman, but I am really happy they traded back. I had something else I wanted to say. I know some people still think Jalen Carter is going to fall because I know what did he get caught for? Like speeding.
It was like reckless driving,
something like that.
Street racing.
Yeah. I don't know if he'll. Do you think how far do you think he's gonna fall? Because I don't think he's gonna be like the consensus number one defense.
Man, honestly, I have a strong feeling that he could fall out of the top 5. I could see Arizona taking him over Will Anderson. Now, I'm not really high on that. If you would have asked me that like a month ago, I would have been a little bit more confident that Jalen Carter would go over Will Anderson. It's just that you don't really find a lot of dominant defensive tackles that have the pass rush potential that Jordan Davis has. But it's like, it looks like we could see a good amount of QBs, probably like the best QB prospects going in within the first couple of picks. But I think after Seattle, you have to look at Detroit. You already have Aiden Hutchinson.
That'd be horrible to play that twice a year. To play Aiden Hutchinson, okay. Now that you say that, I'm getting
James Houston. That's who it is. So you have Aiden Hutchinson, James Houston, and potentially Jalen Carter.
That's scary. That's actually really scary. I think if he were to fall to 9, I feel like you got to get him if he falls that far. I don't know if he will. I will say when it was looking like the Bears were only going to trade down, like when the Texans and Colts were offering trades, and it was looking like the Bears were going to pick around between like 2 or 4, I was saying that Jalen Carter was way better than Will Anderson. Because from what I saw from Will Anderson, I mean, he was good. But like I watched him play against Texas in that one when Alabama played Texas, and I think he had like 50 yards in penalties. Like it was terrible. Like from what I saw from Will Anderson, I mean, I know he's still a great player, but from what I saw, I definitely thought that Jalen Carter was better. So I'm saying, if he were to fall to 9, I would say you got to get him. I feel like you just got to assume the risk with that one. But I think if he doesn't, just take an offensive lineman because you don't want Fields running for his life every play. I saw some people. This is what I saw, and I don't know if I wasn't. I saw some people saying the Bears should eventually draft Bijan Robinson from Texas, and what they said was draft Bijan Robinson and run the option all year. Just run the option. And I was like, I mean, it could work, but I feel like that would get snuffed out pretty quick. But I wouldn't be opposed to drafting Bijan Robinson. He's a really good running back. I would definitely not be upset if they picked him.
And I was definitely about to ask you that there could be a potential possibility that maybe you guys take another back. But with the 9th overall selection, I don't think you guys would take one that high.
Not top 10. Don't take a back.
Yeah. Even though Bijan, when you talk to most people in the draft community that do all these mock draft and rankings, a lot of people view him as a consensus top 10 or top 5 player in this draft. It's just, the demand for the running back position is so low, but he probably will go in the first round. But I think if I was Ryan Poles and I was making a pick 9th overall, if Jalen Carter isn't on the board, I probably do continue to build on the offensive side of things. I probably would try to see if Paris Johnson is still on the board, or I would maybe take Peter Skoronski. It's just the problem with Peter Skoronski is that he has those short arms, similar to the Rashawn Slater criticism that people had about him.
Also a Northwestern guy.
Don't know what it is with Northwestern, Pat Fitzgerald, and these short arm offensive tackles, but they normally end up being pretty good. Rashawn Slater is pretty good when he's available and he's on the field and healthy. Maybe Peter Skoronski could follow down in the same footsteps. But this is it for this episode, everybody. Once again, Quincy, let the people know where they can find you at.
YouTube, Quincy Bell Sports. Instagram, Quincy_Bell_sports. And then Bloomington Buddies on Spotify. It's a podcast I run with my buddy at IU.
All right, everyone. This is it for this episode. Once again, if you enjoy, leave us with a 5-star review. We would greatly appreciate it. Share this episode of the JT Sports Podcast on all social media platforms with your friends, family members, and acquaintances. Remember that you can listen to the JT Sports Podcast on all podcasting platforms: Apple, Google, Spotify, Amazon, wherever you get your podcast from. You can find the JT Sports Podcast.